Welcome to Walk the Talk, Prime Minister.
Very good to be with you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Such a privilege to have you on Walk the Talk.
Well, it's great to be back in India for my third visit over the last 6 or 7 years, and this time bringing the biggest ever business delegation that's ever left Britain's shores, including museums like the British Museum. So not just business, but sport, culture, arts, universities too.
Museum to universities, to Virgin Atlantic, to Debenhams, to
absolutely
everything.
Well, we think the partnership between Britain and India can be a very deep, very special partnership, and we're incredibly impressed with what's happening in your economy and the big changes that are happening, and we want to be your partners.
In spite of our coalition politics, which is spicier than yours.
I gather, but we'll probably have lessons to learn there too.
Spicier and even more unpredictable.
Right. Well, look, all politicians face challenges and difficult decisions, and clearly India is no exception. But your opportunities with your economic growth and the potential with your young population is immense, and so we want to work with you as you make these decisions.
Notes with Dr. Manmohan Singh on how to manage a coalition?
We haven't discussed that, but maybe this time I will ask him. He's more experienced than me, and as you say, there are more parties in his coalition, but I'm sure we have things to learn from each other.
And I bet he's thicker skin than yours.
Maybe. I don't know. I'll ask him. I think he's done an excellent job, though, and he's a very good partner. We work very closely together. We have a very frank and candid relationship, and it's one that I value. I always joke with him that I've only been to one British university. He's been to two, Oxford and Cambridge, so He is a great scholar too.
But tell me something. Third time in India, but first time in 20 years that a British Prime Minister comes to Bombay.
Yes. Well, I came to Bombay when I was leader of the opposition some 5 years ago, and I was incredibly impressed by the vibrancy, by the growth. But obviously then the big bridge across the bay wasn't constructed.
Right.
And coming this time and seeing that was like a symbol of the immense change that's taking place in your country. And this is a key financial centre. Britain is a big financial player, and it's right for a British Prime Minister to be here.
Yes, what is not right is for one not to have come here for 20
I know,
years.
but I've tried to do my bit. So when I became leader of the Conservative Party, my first major visit was to India. When I became Prime Minister, my first major visit was to India. And within 2.5 years, I'm back again with a big business delegation back in Mumbai, and then next to Delhi as well.
So we are not complaining, obviously. We are very happy. But why this focus on India?
Well, I think that we've got special things to bring to each other. If you look at Britain, I'm very proud that Tata, one of your great businesses, is transforming the British steel industry, is transforming the British motor industry with Jaguar Land Rover. But we think we have a lot to offer India too. You're going to be providing 40 million new university places. We've got great universities to work with you on that. You're going to be doubling your spend on healthcare. We have fantastic hospitals and healthcare businesses. You're going to be building motorways, railways, infrastructure. We have great architects and planners. So I think the partnership is what we should be building. And in doing that, we have 1.5 million Indians living in Britain, making a massive contribution, many of whom run successful businesses, who I brought with me back to India. So I think this can be a special partnership.
And this idea of Mumbai-Bangalore corridor comes from this economic corridor.
Yes, I think it's a very good idea. As the Indian economy thinks of how it is going to plan and expand, the idea of having a corridor of new towns along that route to help drive economic growth, I think is an exciting one. So we have architects, planners, designers here to help discuss it with you. And if this idea takes off, we'd like to be part of it.
And why leave it all to the Japanese?
Well, exactly. So, look, someone said that the Japanese have the motor cars to sell, the Germans have the machine tools to sell. We like to think in Britain we have everything. We have insurance, banking, retail, motor cars, manufacturing, many things to offer. And also, I'd stress this point that we haven't just come with business. We've brought museum curators, we've brought the Premier League football clubs, we've brought great things like the British Library. So culture, sport, arts, as well as business. And there's a people-to-people relationship too.
How do you compare, maybe compare is the wrong expression, how is the Indo-UK relationship different from Indo-US relationship?
Well, I think there's obviously the past, which I think we should draw strength from, the culture and language and history. There's also the people-to-people relationship. Of course, there are many Indians living in the United States, but I think the British Indian community, numbering around 1.5 million out of our 60 million. It is they make a big contribution. So I think there's the past, the family ties, and then there's the future with all the things that we share that I think can make it a very strong partnership.
But why, do you think it has quite reached the level it should have?
No, I think it could be much better. I mean, the signs are good.
And why not? And is it in spite of the history, or is it because of the history?
I think that we haven't worked hard enough. I think that Britain now needs to look outwards beyond Europe and think, why can't we do better at restoring old friendships and making new friendships? And I think we need to work harder at it. The signs are good. You know, Britain is now the top European investor into India. Half of Indian investment into the European Union comes to Britain. So the signs are good, the basis is there, but I think we need to work at it and think of all the ways we can explore this partnership.
When you say you have to look beyond Europe, you know, it'll get people's attention immediately, particularly after your speech in Davos. And
yes, that does. Look, I think Britain has an important role to play in Europe. The single market is the biggest single market anywhere in the world, and we're part of that. I want us to reform the European Union. It's become too bureaucratic, too inflexible. It needs to be more competitive. I want us to reform it, but I want us to stay in it. But at the same time as doing that, we'd be mad if we weren't looking.
Brussels seems to have become the new big UN town.
Well, yes, it is, in a way. But we'd be mad if we weren't looking at, you know, the economies of the south and the east of the world, the India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Brazil. There's so much growth and vibrancy that a country like Britain should be going back to its past, where we were much more traders, investors. We need to get that again.
Given the focus you seem to have on university people from universities in a delegation, and also in your talk, looks like you really want our students. And,
yes.
And they've been growing in numbers
yes.
Over the past, say, 10 years. But is it just about getting admission revenues?
No, what revenues? It is we actually, when we became the government, we closed down a lot of bogus colleges that were attracting people from all over the world, not simply India, but people who were coming really not to study but to do unskilled labour. We closed. What I want is quality. I want the bright Indian graduate that wants the choice of a university to choose Britain. And so we're saying, having sorted out the bogus colleges, there's now no limit on the number of Indian students that can come to Britain if they have an English language qualification and the place at a British university. No limit. So I think that is an attractive offer to make. And the point is not simply to benefit our universities. It's that if your students come to my country and if my students go to your country, they'll want to work together, they'll want to create businesses together, they'll want to share experiences together, and that's how we'll succeed in the modern world.
So you've asked my next question. So if they finish their education, are they also welcome to stay on and work?
Yes, they are. We're saying if they have a graduate job, they can stay in work. Now, I think this is an important message. I think ambitious Indian students coming to British universities know they can get a place and they can stay if they have a graduate job. And I think that is a good offer.
And you will relax the visa issue for them?
Well, for them, if they have a graduate job,
open view.
If they have a graduate job as they leave university, they can stay on, and then they have to renew their visa from time to time.
Right.
But that would be then they'd be starting to make some of their career in the UK, and I think that is a good offer.
So, how does one read that in view of your approach to immigration from, say, European South?
Well, I think when I became Prime Minister, we had a very chaotic immigration system. We had huge amounts of unskilled migration coming from other parts of the world to the UK, even though we have many unskilled, unemployed people in the UK that we should be helping to get into work. But we should be looking at the quality of the immigration. So we want bright students to come to Britain. We want entrepreneurs to come to Britain. So what we've introduced is a proper focus. Controls and limits, yes, but a proper focus. And for Indian students, no limit to the numbers who can come and study at British universities.
Mm-hmm. Because given the abysmal standards of our universities and given the great shortages of higher education, we will keep that supply line running.
Well, I hope you will, but also I think
because we are not about to reform our education in a hurry.
I hope you will. I think that you have 500 million people under the age of 25,
right?
And countries with that many people under the age of 25, the key will be: do you educate and skill and equip them to be part of a successful economy or not? And we want the answer to be yes. And so we stand ready with our universities, colleges and skills to help. We have an aim of training 1.5 million Indian teachers between now and 2017. We have skills programs at our colleges we want to bring to your colleges and make sure they work together.
So as they do war gaming, or as they do case studies in management school, when you find your job tiring or you get frustrated, do you ever think of a war gaming kind of scenario on governing India for a day?
I don't.
That's how complicated.
I don't know. I mean, it's so much a bigger country, and you have so many different regions and issues. I don't think prime ministers are transferable. So I've got plenty to focus on in the UK.
But problems of your own, as they say.
Yeah.
So you come to India. You've been focusing on business. We've been reporting on the letters you've been writing to our Prime Minister. You have a few issues to sort out in India. One of those is tax issue. You've said that there has to be a difference between tax avoidance, what we call as tax planning, and tax theft.
Yes.
Particularly as it applies to Vodafone in India.
Yes.
Where do we stand there?
Well, I think what I would say to the Indian government, Indian business and Indian people is, the investment into a country like India of a company like Vodafone is very valuable. These companies are useful at spreading technology, bringing good jobs, helping people to be connected through mobile phone networks. And we have to make sure, whichever country we're running, that the system is fair, that it's predictable what tax they will pay. And I think that is the absolutely key thing, that they invest knowing what the rules of the game are, knowing what the taxes are. They must pay those taxes, and I hold no brief for companies that try and hide away from paying their taxes. But if it becomes totally unpredictable, then that is very damaging for those businesses, and I would argue for the economy as well.
So Vodafone, looks like Government of India and Vodafone are talking now.
They're talking. I think that's good. Progress is being made, but it's making sure it is predictable and also this issue is settled.
Because the principal argument on the other side is that India is not a tax haven.
Of course.
When you have a transaction of this size, you ought to have somebody ought to have paid tax somewhere.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And I think, if you listen to Vodafone, they would say they are paying taxes, they are making a contribution. Right. Their argument is about the consistency and predictability. But as you say, the Indian government and Vodafone must sit down and discuss this and hopefully reach a conclusion where everyone can see that it will be consistent for other companies as well in the future.
So what will be your advice to Vodafone and what will be your advice to your
My advice to both is that to sit down, talk, discuss, reach a settlement, and then everyone can know there's a fair situation.
But do you think today we are closer to a resolution than we were 2 years back?
The last I saw of Vodafone, they thought that some steps had been taken forward, yeah.
And what about your other companies? Because these are big companies who want doing business in India. You also want them doing business.
Yes, well, I brought with me some of the biggest companies. BP is on the aeroplane with me, as are some of the biggest companies. There are some areas like legal services where we think international law firms should be able to invest in India and set up practices in India. There's the issue of insurance companies. Britain's a leading player in insurance. We
are with you on that, because if we can expose the apple grower of Kashmir to the apple grower of Washington, why not expose an Indian law firm to a foreign law firm?
But we have to do both. That's the point. There's the way I see it is I've come to India knowing there are things that the Indian government would like me to do. Same-day business visa service, we're going to do it. Access to more modern technology, we're going to change our rules. Clear message for students coming to the UK, we've made that clear.
If they have graduate jobs, they can stay on in UK.
So I think if we deal with our barriers, I will be saying to the Indian government, I know you want to examine some of your barriers, and letting insurance, banking, retail invest into the Indian economy, I think will help the Indian economy to grow. And obviously we're discussing this as part of the free trade agreement between the European Union and India. I think that free trade agreement could be great for both sides, but both sides will have to do some giving.
Right. You have some issues for BP as well, about some clearances?
Well, BP has made, I think, one of the biggest investments that any individual company has made into India in recent years, and I'm very proud it's a British company doing that. I'm meeting with BP and some Indian businesses later, so we'll be able to discuss any issues they might have.
But again, those are issues that you think can be resolved, or should be resolved?
I think they can be resolved. BP is a very reputable company, has invested all over the world. I think the opportunities for India to have greater energy independence through developing its resources are very promising.
Right. And the inevitable issue, you have one problematic issue on your agenda. That is the AgustaWestland helicopters.
Yes.
We timed that story perfectly to hit on the eve of your arrival.
First of all, it's worth remembering the owners of AgustaWestland is an Italian company, Finmeccanica, and so this is really an issue for the Indian authorities and the Italian authorities to settle between them. My interest is just to make sure that AgustaWestland, which is a good company in the West Country in England that makes good helicopters, that they continue to have a good name, and we must make sure that happens.
Because one of the beneficiaries, or alleged beneficiaries, is British. So have you got an approach from Government of India to help in investigations, and will you?
I haven't received an approach, but any approach we get we'll obviously cooperate with in full. We have independent prosecuting authorities in the UK, the Serious Fraud Office and others. We also have in the UK a very strong anti-bribery law, which we introduced under my government. It's one of the toughest anywhere in the world, and so countries that want to do business with Britain...
That's another British law we should...
Well, it's there for others.
We try to amend some of the old ones, but this one we should not lift.
It's there for others to look at. I mean, I think there is a problem throughout the world. It's not a British problem or an Indian problem. Throughout the world there's a problem of corruption and bribery, and we need to make sure that we have proper rules in place to deal with it.
Did you get a request from Government of India last year to help with this?
I don't recall that. Certainly any requests we have from the Government of India will be dealt with properly. That is how we would do things.
Well, ownership's in Italy, but production is in UK, and there are jobs there.
That's right.
So, would you have any advice on how this should be handled?
Well, I think what matters is getting to the truth. And these are allegations that have been made, and the Indian authorities and the Italian authorities will want to get to the truth of what happened.
Right.
And if there's unacceptable practice, that needs to be dealt with.
Right.
My interest is that there are people who manufacture helicopters, who work very hard, who produce a great product, the AgustaWestland helicopters, and I want to make sure their future is safeguarded.
So separate the machine from the scandal.
Yes,
and
correct.
And it can be done.
Well, I think it can be done.
You are a politician. Well, anything can be done.
Anything can be done. No, but also, I'd make the point that AgustaWestland sells helicopters all over the world.
Right.
It didn't actually employ, I think, more staff to take on this particular order. Right. So I believe the company has a good future. I will always support it and make sure it can continue to do its good work.
Well, I know you are rushed for time, but let me ask you something.
Yeah.
When you come to India, almost anybody you meet is about twice your age, starting with the Prime Minister. How does it work?
Well, I think in periods of our history, we had much older Prime Ministers. We've even had younger Prime Ministers than me. Pitt the Younger was
I asked
younger than
David Miliband this because there were some stories about his meeting with Pranab Mukherjee.
Yes. Look, I think we should always respect our elders. We should learn from people who've done these sorts of jobs for longer than I have. Manmohan Singh has been Prime Minister for many years now. He's very wise, very experienced.
I don't know if you saw it. I saw there's a banner on Marine Drive that says Indian politicians should learn from the Pope.
Well, I think that's a bit unfair. But no, I think Manmohan Singh is, well, I've always enjoyed working with him. I think he's a very wise man. I listen very carefully to what he says.
Well, thank you very much. I hope both of you listen to each other and say the right things to each other.
Of course.
And I hope you get to check out the Kerala fish curry you wanted to.
Yes, I will, I'm sure. No, that's the one my wife makes. I need to get back to Kerala. I've been to Kerala.
But if you were here, not as Prime Minister, with all the bandobast as we call it in India, we could take you to some really great places.
But I did once have a holiday in Kerala, and it was very beautiful. And went to Cochin as well. So I've travelled a little in India, but there's a lot more for me to discover.
Well, keep coming back.
Thank you.
Keep coming back as Prime Minister.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.